Look at the games coming out on the Nintendo Switch 2, the third-party games. They're already designing these developers have already basically, I think at this point, gotten editions of their games ready to go to leverage a brand new market of gamers who've been playing on the Switch to buy their games at a higher cost. The crazy thing is a lot of these games are already old games. If you look at this article from Polygon, they said big publishers who haven't been able to bring their biggest platform games to the Nintendo Switch due to its relative lack of processing power are racing to release their port titles to the more powerful Switch 2. We got our first indication this Wednesday's Switch 2 Direct with the announcement of Switch 2 versions of Elden Ring, Split Fiction, EA Sports FC, Madden NFL, Hogwarts Legacy, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3-4, Hitman World of Assassins, Yakuza, everybody. And majority of these games are already old games that are either reduced in their price or are going to go on sale as we enter the summer sale, the fall sale, because these markets are going to be doing their thing and they're going to want to leverage the Nintendo markets to sell higher price versions of their games. At the same time, if you think about the Steam Deck, it's actually a thing that gets you into the PC ecosystem that's been appealing, or at least positioning itself to appeal to people who want to get into PC gaming and also like handheld gaming, for them to be able to have the console-like experience at their fingertips. Its pricing is better than the Nintendo Switch to a point, and I'll tell you why, because this is what the differential is. If you actually go ahead and say, okay, this right here, this $399, 256 gigs, when you add your $80 docking station, that price goes up. However, caveat, big fat one, it is a computer. You can modify the hardware. Yes, you can. You can increase your internal hard drive whenever you wish to do so with the Steam Deck and install SteamOS back on there. You can install Windows on there. You can install whatever it is that you want to within reason of a PC, and you can use it as a full-blown desktop. I have before. I do own one of these. Okay? But isn't it interesting, though, that the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to make games available at performances that people mock the Steam Deck for? I mean, and this is not me. I mean, I only play on my Steam Deck very occasionally. I'm not like excited. Oh, yeah, I got a Steam Deck. Nah. I played handhelds from when I was a little boy. So, to me, you just kind of move on to the things that you probably get affinity to. No problem. Nice having a handheld. But a lot of the games that I play, I still prefer playing on a, bigger screen with bigger images and better performance. But it's weird that it has to be memed that Nintendo Switch 2, that the Steam Deck 3 is 3 years old at this point, but still has some tricks up its sleeves, where the Switch 2 comes with 120 hertz 1080p mode. Steam Deck says, call an ambulance, and then whips out a not paying for $90 games. Not saying that these third-party games will be $90, but I won't be surprised that they're going to try to basically get in there and get their bag as quickly as possible. So what I think is going to hit gaming is people who are looking from a value perspective are going to start doing some investigation. What can I get for my money? Anybody that asks that question is going to look around. I'm not going to say that the person is going to conclude one way or the other, but their conclusions are not going to be without considering what the options are for them. For instance, a majority of these games that are listed here, Hogwarts Legacy, Hitman World of Assassination, Yakuza 0, Street Fighter 6, most of these games are already Steam Deck verified. I mean, you can literally look at all the, Steam Deck top played games on here, and you'll see Cyberpunk 2077, Elden Ring, right? Hogwarts Legacy, Assassin's Creed Shadows, even Fallout 4, Hades, Helldivers 2, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Majority of these games are already geared to be playing on the Steam Deck. And most of them are playing at very respectable frame rates and such. But the Switch one could not deal with this. And now these games are going to flood their way into that ecosystem and now start asking for big monies. And people who are thinking, or who even can get a whiff of any information to know that, hey man, this Final Fantasy VII remake that's coming out, if I actually wanted to get the game on the Steam Deck, You know what that does though? That changes the game. You know what I mean? That really does change the game. I get to spend less money overall. Sure, I may basically maybe buy an extra, item here or there on my Steam Deck. Pay slightly more now, but I don't get to deal with all of the control that Nintendo may want to, go ahead and implement or at least, shove down my throat. This is why people move to PC gaming. I've already started seeing people look at the prices, look at things going on today and say, man, that's it for me. I'm going to become a PC gamer. I mean, you're a gamer at the end of the day. I guess all these qualifiers that we put in front of it, is just based on where we play our games. But some people at this point, they just prefer to have more in terms of freedom where nobody is actually pointing out, what's going on. In fact, Cyberpunk 2077 will be available from day one as the Switch 2 launches game. So with Street Fighter, Civilization, Hitman, Hogwarts Legacy, they're ready to go. And several other third-party games. Final Fantasy VII Remake is currently in development and will head to Switch 2 at a later date. Enid developers are also getting involved. Hades 2, Silksong, Deltarune, Chapters 3 and 4 coming to Switch 2 as among many others. The show of third-party support for the Switch 2 during the Direct is likely just the tip of the iceberg. Nintendo has been relatively selective, reportedly very selective about its partners it's been willing to share Switch 2 developer kits with up to this point. At the moment, it seems to be big publishers like Square, EA, Capcom who've been given access, along with select major independent studios. Nevertheless, it's a marked shift in tone from the launch of the Switch, when third parties, wary of Nintendo after the failure of the Wii U, were slow to get on board. By the time they did, they only had a narrow window to release ports like Doom and Witcher 3 before the gap between handheld capabilities and prior requirements of modern AAA games became too large to bridge. Switch 2 has narrowed that gap. Switch 2 is now basically, and says perhaps it was 150 plus million sales of Switch that persuaded them. Well, even when the Switch was selling a lot, many of them were still slow to put their games on there because of the, required, work you had to do to overcome the hardware challenges. But they still did. So I'm laughing going, the Switch is going to need to provide a very interesting value proposition to be able to push that 150 million that it pushed in the last generation. I don't know if he'll be able to pull it off. It might. And, Nintendo fans like their Nintendos. I already have people saying that they're going to go ahead and buy it. Right? I have people already saying that they're going to go ahead and trade their regular Switch and, push it towards a Switch 2. There's also that reality for a lot of people where they don't have to spend money from the base. It is what it is. But some people will still keep their Nintendo Switch because they get the advantage of being able to do things on their Nintendo Switch 1 that their Switch 2 might not, allow for them to do. That's also another differential. So we'll be seeing how the market actually responds to all of this, because now there are options, and there are already options. More options are coming in terms of handhelds that give you access to all of the third party side at least, while leaving you to decide if the first party is worth you actually adopting the console. Or you can go to another platform entirely that is free from all of those. Anyways, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.